Hello there. Let's conclude our discussions about how to conduct a political analysis of your projects, programs, and initiatives. I want to conclude this series by briefly discussing the reasons why you may have to do a political analysis of your project. And then I will briefly discuss the what's and the how's, what you can do, and how you can go about doing what you have to do. Not every initiative requires political analysis. However, a short and crisp reason to be able to do a political analysis is that you do not want to fail. First, let me discuss the reasons why a political analysis might be needed. Thus, it will be clear why a project manager needs to understand the politics. The titles of all previous episodes are on the screen's left side, and links are in the description below. As always, liking and sharing is a free way to support my work. To determine why one should know about the political analysis, let's now go over a few real-life situations that a project manager may face. You will see that such scenarios call for a project manager to be politically astute and sensitive. He will have to be thoughtful and creative so that he can navigate the myriad of organizational complexities. Let's get right into it. As I said earlier, not every initiative requires a political analysis. Generally, political analysis is necessary to be done in certain specific situations. I will discuss some of the scenarios. However, there may be a few other occasions when you may have to carry out such an analysis. First, most organizations are structured around line functions. The expertise, skills, and knowledge, therefore, the team members are rooted in these functions. Typically, these line functions are the teams focused on certain specific focus areas or skill sets. Consequently, they are highly specialized in particular functional areas. The individuals from these line functions are assigned to one or multiple projects. Although they are expected to complete the project's deliverables, they do not directly report to the project manager. Generally, they continue to report within their line functions. A typical project team has such a structure where the workforce comes from different line functions. On occasions, the role of a project manager may become customary. Second, though the project manager carries the burden of responsibility to deliver, he practically does not possess the required matching authority. The power and the authority remain within the line functions. Having to produce a satisfactory outcome without much power adds the layers of complexities and makes the job tricky. Next, the third is, the project managers find it challenging to get adequate resources. On many occasions, the resources have to be negotiated or bargained. In a budget-constrained initiative, you may find yourself almost begging for them. It threatens the project's productivity, throughput, and eventually, the outcome. Fourth, a project manager may run into situations where different power centers try to influence the initiative's outcome. Consequently, without a power base, or a weaker power base, he may not be able to stop the initiative from deviating from the original scope. Fifth, imagine a situation where you find yourself in the middle of the power games of two seniors. Sixth, programs and initiatives that runs across functions, businesses, and geographies often come across success-threatening complexities. It is known that a standard methodology-based process framework enables us to deliver the desired outcomes by deploying well-elaborated and detailed processes, tools and techniques in our projects and programs. It is also known that these processes bring uniformity across the enterprise. Such an exercise builds the enterprise-wide common vocabulary. Besides, it also brings appropriate levels of transparency across the hierarchies. However, despite the standardization, a few of the commonly occurring games are consistently observed. For example, inhibiting the flow of information, bending the agreed processes and procedures, and imposing unnecessary constraints. These games make organizations vulnerable to failures and disasters. Next is the seventh. Many organizations prefer to hire professional project managers on a temporary and contract basis. Such contractors typically come on board as consultants, experts in their respective fields, and generally, they are respected for their past track record. Given their contract's temporary nature and the fact that they need a good and positive track record, they have to navigate the organizational stakeholder landscape cleverly. They consciously have to ensure that they do not rub anyone wrongly, simply because they don't have a stable and reliable power base in the organization. 8th. Such a power base may also be missing in the organizations where the project manager role is customary. The authority and power may reside with line functions and the competency-focused teams. Next is the 9th. A project manager working in an organization where they don't have a power base generally puts the project manager at the receiving end of the territorial games at play. Even though he may not be interested in political games, a basic understanding will help him identify them, which may help build the right response and the support system. Last but not least is the 10th. Which is, what if you realize one day that your project is doomed to fail? In such a situation, political analysis is beneficial while identifying the root causes to prepare a plan of action. To me, the ability to do fundamental political analysis and to be able to come up with a basic and clear political plan should be an essential skill in the project management skill set. Unfortunately, such an important role has this crucial element missing in its fundamental education. Most project managers are politically challenged. There may be several reasons for it, but a blatant denial about politics in the organization contributes the most. Therefore, the project manager's education does not cover it. There is a strong resistance in the organizations to encourage conversations around it. Thus, the very fact that living a life in denial is not known to solve problems, most project managers begin as politically challenged. Many of them remain so. So far I have discussed the whys, the reasons why a political analysis may be required in your projects, and why you should know about it. I have also stated that a project manager role may find itself in the middle of power play and territorial games. A combination of power play and territorial games, with the fact that project managers' power base generally does not exist, is not a healthy sign. Essentially what you have is a delicate situation that can be detrimental to success. A focus on methodology, procedures, and reports may help us navigate the constraints without considering the political environment. Such an effort is only lip service. Objectivity is the primary goal of a standardized implementation of process frameworks. However, as discussed previously, in real-life situations, the operating environment can bring substantial subjectivity. This subjectivity is mammoth. It can be a significant enough factor to immensely influence the dynamics of the execution phase. A well-trained professional may find himself on the wrong side due to the political dynamics. Despite being well-versed in methodologies, tools and techniques, methods and procedures, with a transparent and process-driven approach, he may still struggle in a political environment. The existing and potential problems can be documented and discussed, negotiated and bargained, prioritized and deferred. However, by definition, every project is unique and individuals are the stakeholders. These stakeholders have their motivation rooted in the self-interests. Therefore, responses to any given problem are generally unique, as it has distinct characteristics. The political analysis is based on the understanding and perceptions about the organization's political environment that you have developed as a professional. Therefore, the responses will be highly subjective. They introduce even more subjectivity. With this background, let's do a quick recap of all of the previous episodes. Episode 1 was an introduction. In Episode 2, I covered what is politics. In this episode, I discussed that politics, as per political science, is how people decide to work together and make decisions in groups. Episode 3 dealt with the stakeholder analysis. I discussed that there are many documented sources of information about the stakeholders. Documents like project charter, business requirements, the scope of work, and project plan contain the stakeholders' names, positions, and respective roles within the project. Also, you can get more information by scanning the organization charts. I have also discussed that the most critical basis of stakeholder analysis is to understand their importance to the project, that is to know why they are important for your success. Moreover, you have to understand what is important to them. Such an understanding of the stakeholders will lead to prioritization. We have also discussed that only this prioritization will lead you to deliver the outcome. Here, during this step, I propose that using a few tools, you can identify those with authority, influence, and those who possess the ability to impact the initiative. In episodes 5 and 6, I discussed 2 specific tools to help identify the power, influence, and impact. In episode 7, we saw how the salience model helps us in prioritizing the stakeholders themselves. In episode 4, I proposed a player's paradigm. In this episode, I used the metaphor of a duel. It represented the threats and opportunities, the conflicts and collaboration, the pitfalls and the struggles, the risks and problems. The stakeholders invariably found themselves engaged in the conflicts and contradictions, rooted in their self-interest. Self-interest drives each of the stakeholders. For some, self-interest is performing the role to their best. In contrast, others may like to exploit the opportunities for their own selfish, professional, or personal interests. They prefer to pursue such opportunities rather than to focus and deliver the outcome. Each individual is driven by their own value system, ideals, personal aims, and ambitions. Not everyone is committed to identical professional ethics, values, and norms. Similarly, not everyone is bound to act as per your expectations, no matter how hard you try. This natural tendency of the individuals makes the stakeholders players engaged in a duel game. The players, who are engaged in a constant play of moves and countermoves, each acting within the boundaries of rules, each acting within their own individual and professional duties and rights. I also discussed that there is nothing you can do about it. I called it diversity. And it would persist. If it is a natural tendency of the individuals to be motivated out of self-interest, which can introduce the dynamics that resemble the game of Duel. And the stakeholders resemble the players, who are engaged in a constant play of moves and countermoves. If such a scenario is diversity, and there is nothing you can do about it. And consequently, if your job is to navigate in this complex landscape, does it not mean that you will do yourself a favor if you let a solution-oriented approach guide you? With this approach, you have to build alliances and relationships. It is with such a mindset that you should identify your allies and advocates. Of course, friends too. But the criteria for identifying your friends must be based on who can support delivering your initiative's goals and objectives. At the same time, you should also know about your opponents and adversaries. Of course, the enemies too. If you ever find yourself confused over who your enemy is, just observe whether they help you in working towards the goals and objectives of the initiative. Imagine yourself walking towards your destination. Whenever you sense that someone is pushing you towards it, you have most likely encountered your support. And when you're being disrupted and pulled away, it's most likely that you have encountered someone who is not supportive. Amongst them, there will be sharks and foxes. They will possess the ability to harm you unexpectedly. They may appear nice and friendly, and they may also intend to disrupt your progress. There may be smooth and polite talkers around you with such intentions. And then, you may come across those who are like shapeshifters, the flexible kind. You may not be able to make up your mind whether they are trustworthy. Similarly, you have those who act like a rock-solid foundation for you. Those who are your strong advocates. Amongst them are simple-minded people who are only interested in doing well in their roles. You can be almost sure of their support. In your operating environment, you can be sure of support from your friends, allies, and advocates, as long as you reciprocate with equal support in their roles. You may end up creating a robust support system for yourself if you reciprocate. The criteria of separating those who support you from those who do not must be based on identifying those who can help you deliver the outcome and those who will not do so. Clearly, in this political analysis and your plan to counter the detrimental aspects of politics, the initiative's goals and objectives are at its center. So you may ask, how do you deal with the adversaries, opponents, and enemies? How can you keep such elements under control? As a project manager who generally does not have a stable power base in the organization, you have to ensure that you do not shut off the communication. You have to keep them closer, for only by keeping them close you can get to know their intentions. Once you know their intentions, you can always counter the moves that can potentially disrupt the progress. It's a difficult task. The political analysis of any project, program, and initiative is not straightforward. Managing politics is even more difficult. It puts off many. It is a strong demotivator. Especially in organizations where the project manager role is customary and the authority and power remains with other functions. The external consultants and contractors who work as project managers. The subject matter experts who are more passionate about the problem at hand than having to deal with the political scenario around themselves. Practically, anyone who is either not equipped or is not authorized enough to handle the politics or not interested at all in it can be put off by the politics. It doesn't matter whether you like it or not. The purpose of an organization is to deliver a product or service in the marketplace. Your role as a project manager helps to do just that. You have to keep stakeholders satisfied, and therefore, your job is even more complicated. The work environment in a few organizations is designed to keep the external project managers out of organizational politics. However, the very nature of a project manager's job exposes him to the vulnerabilities caused due to the political landscape. Therefore, you have to work with those who bring value and render ineffective those who have nothing to bring to the table. Your job is to separate the noise, only to be able to manage it. In short, you should have a simple plan. It is to build solid alliances with allies, advocates, and friends. And, most importantly, is to keep the sharks and the foxes within reach of your eyes and ears, only to be able to handle them in time. Simply speaking, it is a difficult job to do. Of course, a project manager is hired to overcome such challenges. With this, we have reached the end of this episode. This is a difficult topic to deal with, and I am sure you can come up with many more ideas for handling and managing politics in projects. I intended to establish a certain degree of clarity in your thought process. You can see the titles of all the episodes in this series. The description box below contains links to them. I hope it will help you build allies, friends, and advocates, forge alliances and relationships amongst those who matter. Who can bring change on the ground? Liking, subscribing, and sharing is a free way to support my work. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. See you in the next episode.